We are losing her!
A massive ship flips over in a Norwegian channel.
There was a water inrush of about 2,000 tons within minutes.
What was the deck is now rapidly becoming the ceiling.
The desperate search for survivors
We're knocking. Show me.
becomes a race against time
Someone is alive. Someone is trapped.
and sparks one of the most challenging investigations in Norwegian history.
The last note I make is, please make it fast. My colleague is dying.
Norway's west coast. Every day, hundreds of ships navigate these fjords and channels. They're a crucial gateway to some of the busiest waterways in the world. They're also extremely treacherous.
It's not so easy to navigate in these kind of waters. You have the fjords, and very often you have very, very narrow passages. And you must navigate very carefully.
January 19th, 2004. The massive cargo ship Rocknes is traveling through the winding channel from Eikefoot, Norway, en route to the open ocean. Captain Jan Uvik is in command of the ship and all 30 people on board.
How's their progress, pilot?
His ship is loaded with state-of-the-art equipment, but to safely navigate these waters, the captain is relying on a local pilot, 41-year-old Vermund Haljum.
Yeah, all good. So far, still on schedule, too.
Captain Barry Lusk is an expert in marine navigation, and he knows just how crucial the pilot's role is.
The pilot knows that area like the back of his hand, and most captains often turn the entire ship over to the pilot, knowing full well that he knows a lot more about the journey that is going to be undertaken than the captain does.
Steady as she goes.
Haljum will be in charge of navigation till they clear the hazardous channels and reach the open sea. It's something he's done almost 1,000 times before. But the Rocknes is no ordinary ship. 166 meters long, this is the world's largest flexible fall pipe ship, also known as a rock dumper.
She carried the rock on board in her cargo holds, and then she was able to, through a conveyor system and a pipe system that would extend out below the hull, to funnel rock very specifically in a very small area. And this is really good for securing subsea pipelines and laying protective rock in close to civil engineering projects.
All that heavy equipment is great for moving gravel, but it makes this ship tricky to steer. Captain Jan Magne Fossa has piloted the Rocknes and knows just how demanding it could be.
The important challenges for piloting that ship was the quite poor visibility from the bridge. If you try to look what's ahead of the ship, you could actually not see anything else than the superstructure.
The pilot needs to walk more than 24 meters from one side of the bridge to the other just to see what's ahead.
Get my exercise today.
For sure.
Imagine you're driving down the road and there's an enormous block right down the center line of the hood of your vehicle.
They're just minutes away from entering the channel that will take them to the open sea, at a place called Vattelstraumen.
The channel is very narrow, so they must keep the center line of this channel in order to be safe.
That's easier said than done. Currents here are unpredictable.
The current in Vattelstraumen is running in different directions, so it can be quite challenging just to keep the ship steady on the course.
8 stories below the bridge, the ship's crew monitors massive 7,300 kilowatt engines.
Oil pressure looks good.
Okay.
They know the pilot could need more power at any moment. Among them is Hubert Mangense, the ship's electrician.
Our crew, we are working in the same company for a long time. That's why we know each other. and they are good guys.
Like Mangansay, most of the crew are from the Philippines.
They're half a world away, and they spend 6, 8, 10 months away from their family, working aboard those ships.
The enormous ship catches the attention of Gisela Mellem and his wife. They watch from shore as it passes their home.
My wife and I had just eaten dinner and saw Rocknes.
Look at the size of that thing. It's absolutely massive.
It's one of the biggest ships we saw pass by in Vattenströmen. So we went out and just for taking a nice shot of it.
On the bridge of the Rocknes, the pilot is making his final turn into the channel.
Helm, give me 5 degrees port rudder.
Something doesn't feel right.
You feel that? It's listing.
The pilot noted a slight shift or list to starboard.
Let's see what we're dealing with.
Does it look like it's leaning over to one side?
Something is wrong. Something is definitely not right.
The tools in my workshop started to fall. So I go inside in the control room. I saw the third engineer.
Did you feel that?
Yeah. And I tell him we are listing.
The ship is rolling dangerously to starboard,
Sound the general alarm.
and it's not stopping.
I heard the SOS signal and starting to wondering what the hell is happening.
The vessel is listing, she's listing quickly.
Oh my God.
The boat starting to flip over. So I take up my camera again.
The farther they roll, the more likely it is they'll capsize completely.
There's panic on the bridge.
Hard to port!
The pilot hopes a sharp turn will level the ship, but it doesn't work.
The captain very quickly realized that this is a life and death situation.
This is the captain.
We go out running to the ladder, going up, running.
The engine room is at the very bottom of the ship.
We are trying our best to look for the emergency exits because we want to be alive.
We are losing her. Mayday, mayday, mayday. We are turning over in the channel.
Loose equipment is flying around. They're literally trying to hold on to bits and pieces of equipment.
Go, go!
The pilot realized that it's just a few seconds and we will be capsized. So he just went directly for the door.
The pilot manages to haul himself out through the bridge wing door, and below decks, the crew races for the exits.
We are trying our best to climb vertical ladders, climbing the pipelines.
What was the deck is now rapidly becoming the ceiling.
Somehow, the pilot pulls himself over the handrail onto the side of the ship.
He ran on the side of the ship to get up to the bottom of the ship before the ship was totally capsized.
He finds himself actually standing on what would have been underwater a minute ago, the hull of the ship.
The Rocknes is now completely upside down. There's no sign of the captain or other officers. The pilot is the only one who made it off the bridge.
Within 4 minutes, 166 meters of ship with 30 people on board was now completely capsized and upside down.
rescuers search the frigid waters looking for survivors. No one knows Manginsay and 2 colleagues are trapped inside the ship.
What I did on that time is just pray. I pray that, Lord, if you are going to take me, please guide and help my family.
Their oxygen is running out. Their only hope is that someone will find them before it's too late. The 166-meter Rocknes has capsized in a Norwegian shipping channel.
It must have been an unbelievable sight. An enormous ship upside down in the fjord, in front of everybody, in front of people's houses. They saw this actually go on.
Within 30 minutes, 7 survivors are pulled from the icy waters. 2 more, including the pilot, Vermund Haljum, are airlifted from the hull. But 21 of the crew are still missing.
Okay. Let's see what we got.
Leif Linde is in charge of the dive rescue team. He has years of experience, but he's never seen anything like this.
It was big, totally unexpected. This was an event we never planned for.
Now they've got to figure out, is anybody trapped in underneath in the hull? Can we see anybody?
Rescuers circle the ship listening for sounds, anything that might tell them there are survivors trapped in the ship.
They may be hurt, they may be injured, the water is cold.
I think we've got survivors. We're knocking.
Show me.
A faint sound provides a flicker of hope.
Someone is alive. Someone is trapped.
We're here! Help!
Hubert Manginsay and 2 colleagues are trapped in an air pocket near the engine room. What was once the bottom of the ship is now the top.
Help! Please!
I'm holding the pipes, making some bang using this screwdriver. We hope that the rescuer can rescue us.
They've managed to survive flying equipment, and one of them has a broken arm, and the 3 of them are clinging on to a ladder.
When the ship flipped upside down, their escape routes were flooded.
We tried to escape, but the water is starting to go up. We lose hope already because we don't have emergency exits to go.
Somehow, they got lucky. They found refuge in a small pocket of air in the propeller shaft. They don't know how long their oxygen supply will last, or if the water will continue to rise.
Any idea where the sound was coming from?
I don't know. It echoed all over. I couldn't hear a thing.
Linda needs to figure out where the sound is coming from.
The challenge was that knocking reverberates.
We have 166 meters of steel. It's like an echo chamber. So somebody banging, we're not sure where they're banging from.
Okay, let's make a plan. I think our best bet is here. This section.
Linda knows if there are survivors, they'll likely be near the work areas in the engine room. But time is running out.
It's very difficult to breathe there because of the fumes, some chemicals, and drops of oils which are very hot.
They're breathing this stuff in. So it's critical for the rescue team now to get these people out as soon as possible.
Linda's men inch their way along the hull, listening for the source of the sounds. But now, there's a new problem.
Very unstable. Repeat, very unstable.
There's anywhere from 3 to 4 knots of current moving through the channel. So the Rocknes is actually moving. She's still moving bodily in the water, even though she's upside down.
The drifting wreck could sink at any moment. Linda has to make a tough decision.
Understood. Let's get our guys out of there ASAP.
Copy that. Standing down.
He puts the rescue on hold.
The danger was that the ship was going to sink and take all the rescue workers with it.
We can't do anything until we secure the ship. It's too dangerous.
The only choice is to push the 25,000-ton ship ashore to get it out of the current. It must be done carefully, or they risk releasing the air pocket that's keeping the ship afloat and the survivors alive. The delay is agonizing. The survivors have no idea what's going on.
We keep on making some noise. We shouted, but they leave us.
It stopped. It stopped.
After 2 long hours, the Rocknes is secured to shore.
Help! We're here!
And Linda's team is back in action.
Hear that? I heard that.
I make a bang every second
We're here!
to respond the rescuer.
Help! Bang louder!
Okay, okay.
Help! We're here!
Until we coincided.
There. We're coming.
Then we were happy that the rescuers locate us. And that's the time we are thinking that we will be rescued.
You're gonna have to do this nice and careful.
A layer of steel is all that lies between the survivors and rescue. But Linda needs to proceed carefully.
They need to be sure they're not cutting into a fuel tank or a place that could be dangerous. Are they going to blow up something?
He needs to cut just the right spot.
If we open the ship in the wrong place, the air from inside would escape and the ship would sink.
We're gonna drill a hole, then let's take a look. Good.
Trapped air is the only thing keeping the Rocknes afloat and the 3 men alive. Cutting a hole might cause the room to flood and drown the men before they can escape. Pressurized air bursts through the punctured hull.
Can anybody hear me?
The howling noise adds a new complication.
Right below! Right below!
Rescuers can't hear what the survivors are saying. They have to use notes to find out if the area is safe to cut.
When I saw my 2 colleagues, which are very weak, too much blood coming out here, the last note I make is, please make it fast. My colleague is dying.
We're out of time. We gotta go now.
Linda orders his men to start cutting. No one is sure what will happen next.
All that air, that trapped air, is now pressing up on the deck. Once they cut this hole, air is going to push out. Water may start to increase in terms of flowing up through.
Hurry!
Let's get him out.
Go!
All 3 men are pulled out, seconds before the compartment floods with water. They're the last crew members of the Rocknes found alive.
That sight and the look on his face, I'll never forget it.
I say thank you to them. And the rescuer said to me that, Hubert, you are lucky, you survived. And I am very, very happy for that.
After searching all night, 12 crewmen from the Rocknes have been saved. 18 others, including the captain, are dead.
For the 18 casualties, there were many open questions on behalf of their family members. How did this happen?
The pressure is on to find out what caused the deadly capsize of the Rocknes. The day after the tragic capsize of the Rocknes, police divers complete a grim task. They need to recover the remaining bodies of the crew before the ship is towed out of the channel. 18 people died here. Norwegian police want to know why. Bergen's Assistant Chief of Police, Sven Erik Krogvold, is in charge of the police investigation.
The police are concerned about what is the cause of the disaster. Is there any criminal issues here concerning the navigation, or concerning the cargo handling of the ship, or other issues?
There are many witnesses to the disaster, including Gisela Mellem.
I've got the whole thing on my camera.
A series of photographs captures the terrifying scene as the massive ship rolls 180 degrees. Marine investigators from 3 different countries are assigned to find out what went wrong. Right away, they're struck by the shocking speed of the disaster.
It's so odd. How does a ship this big capsize so fast?
Hans Joachim Muller is a marine surveyor and a consultant on the case.
I learned that the ship capsized within 4 minutes. And this is very seldom. Normally, a ship shouldn't capsize within 4 minutes.
It's clear Rocknes hit something that tore a hole in her side, but it's not clear how this hole could have triggered the disaster.
The bottom of the ship, the starboard side of the ship was ripped open for about 20 meters.
Investigators calculate the 20-meter hole would have let in about 2,400 tons of water.
It's a lot of water, but for a ship like this, 166 meters long is not so much.
The hole simply isn't big enough to explain the capsize. There must be more to the story.
So at first, my idea was that there was something wrong with the stability of the vessel.
Investigators learned the Rocknes was modified and then relaunched just 8 months earlier.
The ship was a former bulk carrier and redesigned as a rock dumper.
When the ship was converted, there was 3,000 tons of iron castings added to the deck of that ship, which is a huge amount of weight.
Because of additional structure on board the vessel, they altered the complete stability of the vessel.
Is it possible her top-heavy design is why she capsized so quickly? The only way to find out is to recover the ship's computers from inside the wrecked ship.
I think that it was critical to have this information from the computers because they can restore.
The delicate electronics have been soaked in seawater. No one knows if the data has survived. While marine investigators wait for the salvage to begin, Bergen police try to find out if the ship's pilot, Vermund Hallium, is responsible for the disaster.
I want to thank you gentlemen for coming in.
Our interrogation of him was very formal, and we gave him the formal status of suspect.
Okay, tell us everything you can remember. Start when you got on board, right up until the capsizing.
Because he was the only survivor from the bridge, he could provide some very vital information.
I knew the area well. I wasn't worried.
How was visibility from the bridge?
The visibility wasn't great, but I could handle it.
The pilot tells the police the day started out like any other aboard the Rocknes.
Give me 5 degrees port rudder.
5 degrees port?
But Halyam says there was one hint of trouble. Earlier in the voyage, he noticed the Rocknes was listing slightly to one side.
You feel that?
Yeah, it could be the cargo.
The conclusion was that it must have been some of the cargo that have slid over to the starboard side and make this list permanent.
On this trip, Rocknes was loaded with more than 23,000 tons of gravel stowed in 6 cargo holds, each one taller than a 4-story house. If the cargo was loaded unevenly, it might have added too much weight to one side and caused the list.
It's a pretty small list. We should be okay.
According to Halyam, the captain wasn't worried, and they continued on their journey.
Steady as she goes.
For more than 6 hours, there was no further sign of trouble. Then, the Rocknes started its last turn.
And all of a sudden, they hear scraping.
They could feel some vibrations in the ship.
We've hit something.
Did you feel that?
Yeah.
Think we hit bottom.
Yeah, I think we touched bottom.
You never want to hear that as a pilot.
Running aground is one of the most serious things a ship can do.
Close watertight doors.
The captain at that time felt that they might be able to limit the damage to the ship by closing some watertight doors. It never occurred to the captain or anyone else on that bridge that a capsizing activity was going to take place.
Let's see what we're dealing with.
They knew it was serious. But the Rocknes is designed with watertight bulkheads. It should buy them time to deal with the problem. And according to Halyam, both he and the captain took immediate action to try and save the ship.
However, she starts to develop a much more pronounced list to starboard.
Halyam tried to correct it by turning the ship as hard as possible the other way.
Hard to port!
It didn't work. The ship just kept rolling.
For those on board, it must have been a terrifying experience. The pilot, he realized that there was nothing he could do to save the ship.
Mayday! Mayday! Mayday!
So he just went directly for the door.
That split-second decision saved his life. Now police want to know if he's responsible for running the ship aground.
From your perspective, you were on course?
I was on course.
Halyam is adamant he did nothing wrong.
There was a shoal out there that's not on any chart.
It's an alarming possibility.
We'll look into that.
I'm a policeman, and I'm not a pilot and I'm not a captain, but I was stunned about this.
Thanks for coming, gentlemen.
So this ended up as a main issue for our investigation.
Police are faced with trying to prove one of 2 equally disturbing theories. Either the pilot is lying about being on course, or the chart for one of Norway's busiest waterways is wrong. And many more lives are in danger. Two months after the capsizing of the Rocknes, the upside-down wreckage has been towed to port, and the heavy work of salvage begins. Was the disaster caused by pilot error? Or was the top-heavy ship simply too unstable? Investigators believe the answers may be recorded on the ship's computers. Some have been recovered by divers. Others are still inside the hull.
The investigative team hopes that even though they've been thrown around, they've been submerged in salt water, that the information on the hard drives, the critical information about the moments up to the capsizing, that all this information is secured and that they can use it.
Computer engineer Øyvind Nieland was in charge of the data recovery.
This is definitely a race against time. The salt will start to kind of corrode the drive really hard, and then it gets really difficult to get the data out.
Before they can board the ship, the Rocknes needs to be turned upright in a process known as parbuckling.
It's really a massive operation to turn this big boat around, and it's really dangerous as well.
Parbuckling has rarely been done on a ship this size. It will take a fleet of heavy tugboats and a 900-ton floating crane. And if a cable snaps or a winch jams, it could be a disaster.
They don't want the vessel to keep going and roll back over again. They don't want to hurt or kill anybody. This is a very risky operation.
It takes 2 days to roll the big ship over. Then the next phase of the operation can begin, recovering the ship's computers. Each one has a different story to tell.
You have the navigation computers and you have your loading computers. They are very interesting from our point of view as evidence.
The navigation data should reveal exactly where the ship went off course and whether the pilot is to blame. And the loading data will have crucial information about the stability of the ship. It takes repeated trips to the ruined bridge to find all the computers. Turid Stemra is one of the investigators who went on board.
I felt a bit like I was trespassing. I knew what had happened in there, and I shouldn't have been there.
It was just pieces smashed around everywhere. Of course, that was a kind of a creepy experience, knowing that 18 people died. Can't imagine the pain and the kind of anxiety on all those people going around.
Buried beneath the rubble, the team finds what they're looking for.
We finally found the right computers.
Do you need some more light?
It was almost unbelievable how much was left.
They know this is their best chance to find out what happened in the moments leading up to the disaster, and who, if anyone, is responsible. The computers are in rough shape. They're rushed to Neelan's lab, where the delicate job of data recovery can finally begin.
You are trying whatever you can with all your tools and all your knowledge in order to bring this drive back to life. If we make something wrong, the hard drive may die.
Neelan's team carefully cleans and dries out the electronics. Then they start the painstaking process of determining how much data has survived.
If you imagine putting a puzzle together, the number of pieces on a hard drive, it's millions, millions, and millions.
Reconstructing the data takes weeks. They won't know if they've been successful until the final downloads are complete. And it works.
That was quite a moment for the team.
Great work.
We then knew that we could provide the data to figure this out.
With the newly recovered data in hand, the team wastes no time piecing together the evidence. Pilots rely on special maps or charts that include information about the depth of the water. It allows them to stay in the safe zone down the center and avoid any rocky shallows lurking below the surface. Investigators study every detail of the ship's progress before it ran aground. Did the pilot steer Rocknes dangerously off course? Or will the data confirm his story that whatever he hit, it wasn't marked on his chart?
Look at all these course changes.
They immediately notice something unusual. For some reason, the pilot made many tiny course corrections, instead of a few larger turns.
Coming up on the shallows. Let's go 5 degrees port rudder, please.
On his final turn into Vattelstramen Passage, his strategy seems to backfire.
Here. Looks like he started his turn too late.
So if he started too late, the ship comes too much to the south. That means he came into the red sector. This is for sure.
The late turn took the Rocknes at least 23 meters outside the safe zone. What it doesn't explain is why. Was the pilot being reckless? Or was something else going on in the final moments before the disaster? The navigation data has been recovered from the Rocknes. It reveals the ship veered into dangerously shallow water just moments before the disaster. Investigators want to know why.
Are you ready?
Turid Stemra suspects badly loaded cargo might have played a role. If it made the ship unstable, it could explain why the pilot was struggling with the turns.
In order to be able to assess the stability of Rocknes at the time of the accident, we needed to know exactly how she was loaded.
If the ship was unstable, then there should have been a warning sign for the crew.
We knew that they had procedures whereby they should calculate the stability before they left port.
Stop right there.
The data shows the crew did receive a stability warning after loading the cargo in port.
The Rocknes stability calculator showed us the damage stability. It said critical.
The list was serious, about 14 degrees.
That means that the ship is not correct with the stability. Then you shouldn't sail with a ship like this.
Investigators suspect the problem was triggered by a quirk of the conveyor belts used to load the ship, which tended to dump cargo in a lopsided fashion.
The problem with the load port was that the conveyor belt arm and the system for delivery wasn't long enough, so most of the cargo ended up to one side.
The uneven cargo weighed down one side of the ship, triggering an instability warning for the crew. It wouldn't have been a problem if they fixed it.
Good to go?
The first officer aboard the ship should have sent his men out with rakes and shovels and moved this sloping gravel so that it was equally spaced across the entire hold. That never happened.
It's a shocking discovery. Instead of leveling the cargo by hand, investigators believe the crew corrected the list by adding tons of water to the starboard ballast tanks until the ship leveled out. It was at best a sloppy fix.
The danger with this is that when the vessel started to maneuver to the seaway, then the cargo was liable to shift or move to one side towards the other.
At some point before the Rocknes enters Vattelstramen Channel, the unstable cargo does shift, and the ship begins listing to starboard.
It's listing.
It makes the naturally top-heavy ship even harder to control.
If you are sailing on a ship that is listing when you are making turns, she will start turn faster. You could actually lose control over the ship.
Turning too sharply could cause more cargo to shift and make the list even worse. The pilot decides it's safer to make a wider turn.
5 degrees more, port rudder.
He steers the Rocknes a mere 23 meters past the boundary of the shipping lane, likely believing the waters are safe.
We'll need all other traffic to stay well back.
Police divers have scoured the bottom of the channel searching for the scene of the crime, the exact spot the Rocknes ran aground.
If you have a murder, you could lock down the apartment and secure it that way. Here we have the crime scene, 2 soccer fields long. You can't put a police cordon around it. So that is a very challenging aspect from the police side of you.
In less than a week, they find what they're looking for.
Bingo.
The divers found a rock about 20 kilos, and you had the red paint on it. It's similar to the red paint on the bottom of the Rocknes.
The rock was found just a short distance from where the Rocknes went off course. It could be the final piece of the puzzle to explain why 18 men died.
Let's get this to the lab.
A rock found at the scene of the disaster could be the final clue about what happened to the Rocknes. Lab tests quickly confirm the paint on the rock matches the hull of the ship.
So it was evident. Here is the point where the ship has struck ground.
The impact point is 23 meters outside the safe zone. But according to the pilot, his charts didn't warn him to avoid the rocky shallows.
There was a shoal out there that's not on any chart.
Investigators review the charts and make a troubling discovery. The shoal was added when the map was updated 9 years before. But the change was small and hard to see, and local pilots were never notified.
The Norwegian Hydrographic Office did not produce a notice to mariners that a new shoal has been found and that you are to make a hand correction to your chart to show this danger.
This is the main ship line into Bergen. There's a lot of ships sailing here. Why didn't you notify the mariners, the captains, and the pilots?
It should have been broadcast or made aware to all the pilots who were involved in the operation of that area. It's something that was an oversight. 18 men lost their lives as a result.
After months of investigation by police and marine investigators, it's clear the wreck of the Rocknes was the result of a chain of errors.
I would say more or less everything that could go wrong did go wrong.
It begins when the cargo isn't leveled properly.
Good to go?
It shifts while they are at sea.
You feel that?
Could be the cargo.
The ship begins listing, and the pilot can't turn as sharply as he needs to.
Give me 5 degrees port rudder.
Not realizing the danger, he starts his turn late and strays into the nearby shallows. Seconds later, the starboard hull is torn open by the rocks.
There was a water inrush of about 2,000 tons within minutes.
Hard port!
Once the water rushes in, there's no way to stop the capsize of the massive ship.
The moment the Rocknes hit the rocks, she was doomed.
The unusual speed of the disaster also makes it difficult to escape. 18 crew members are killed.
Most shipping accidents that occur are the result of many small things. In a chain reaction, they come together.
In their final reports, maritime authorities recommend stronger regulations to ensure ships are correctly loaded at port. Vermund Hallium is never charged and continues working as a pilot.
But of course, he have to carry it with him for the rest of his life.
In the wake of the accident, Vadalstraumen Passage is dredged to make it safer for larger vessels. But it is the story of survival that many remember best.
The will to survive by these 3 Filipinos hanging on in the dark, banging and banging and banging until they get a response. And the efforts of the rescue team.
Take my hand.
to keep at it till they got these guys out. It's a remarkable story of survival, but also a remarkable story of dedication on part of the rescue team.
When I think about Rocknes, my tears fall for the 18 men who are my colleagues, who lost their lives. I miss them, and I pray for their souls.
A car ferry heads back across the English Channel.
We'd had a good day out and we were looking forward to having a new adventure on the ship on the way home.
Just outside the harbor, disaster strikes.
Water absolutely plowed in.
Just hit me like a bulldozer. Everyday heroes scramble to the scene.
People inside the ship screaming and shouting, crying. It's absolute chaos and confusion.
Worst part of it, happening to see the children floating in the water.
The investigation reveals a deadly miscalculation.
We did have to scratch our heads at how on earth this vessel sank. She should have been able to make it across the channel.
Speed was all important and safety was not.
It was all madness, really.
March 6th, 1987. Zeebrugge Harbor, Belgium. Tankers, container ships, and ferries all converge at this busy European port, a vital hub for shipping and transportation.
Roger that. We've begun loading, Captain.
Excellent. Thank you.
As daylight begins to fade, the crew of the 132-meter ferry, the Herald of Free Enterprise, starts loading their massive ship.
She was a very modern and very efficient roll-on, roll-off ferry. She was designed both for speed and for volume.
So-called ro-ro ferries, like the Herald, let cars and trucks drive straight through the ship. Ramps at the front and back help loading and unloading happen as quickly as possible. The speed saves time, and time is money in the ferry business.
The time pressures can be quite exacting. In order to achieve optimum efficiency, you've got to get cargo on board as quickly as possible.
It's an unrelenting pace for crew members like Assistant Bosun Mark Stanley. Their workday started hours earlier in Dover, England.
A crew will have an assistant bosun responsible for directing the traffic into the proper places. You can get trailers, you can get lorries, you can get coaches, and then you can get cars and caravans.
Keep it moving, keep it moving.
The challenge is getting all that on board in a short time.
The 8,000-ton ferry has 2 decks for loading vehicles. Also on board are duty-free shops, restaurants, cafeterias, and a lounge that shows movies.
Keep it moving.
The 160-kilometer trip across the English Channel should take about 4 hours. It's the last scheduled run of the day.
This is a big ship. Let me just see if we've got...
16-year-old Gillian Baddeley and her family are returning home from a day trip to Belgium.
There was a deal on in the Sun newspaper, and it was £1 to go to these different places on by via ferry. And wherever the trip was, that was where we would be taken. We'd had a good day out and we were looking forward to having a new adventure on the ship on the way home.
Mark, you keep an eye on your brother.
We got onto the ferry, all of the kids kind of departed, they all went their separate ways. So there was cinemas and restaurants and other things to keep us all entertained.
Hold up, dear. All right, come on. No, not too many sweets, love. Thanks, Mum. Okay, love, see you in a minute. Yeah.
"18-year-old Martin Barnes works in one of the ship's cafeterias.
It was a great social circle of crew.
Whoa, mate! Oh.
We socialised together, we had played football together. Many of us were sort of good friends, you know, socialising and drinking outside of work.
Oh, see you tomorrow, yeah?
It was a Friday. One of our friends was having an engagement party and on the Saturday, so we was all looking forward to getting off on that Saturday.
Trucker Larry O'Brien is heading back home to Ireland with a load of medical supplies. For transport drivers, using the cross-channel ferry is a routine part of the job.
I'm sorry, mate, you're too late. Oh, no, please.
I pulled in and the security man said, "You're too late."
Please, my papers are done. Let me see your papers, please.
But I was in transit. My load was signed from Germany direct to Ireland. So I had no customs to do, it was direct.
Yeah, I've got a big lorry here.
So he said, "Okay, go ahead, you're lucky."
All right. Yeah, it's your lucky day, mate. Oh, thank you. All right.
So I drove straight down. Your man just beckoned me straight in on the boat, and I was the last to load.
O'Brien's glad he got on board. He has a young daughter and a pregnant wife waiting for him at home.
Crew to harbour stations. Crew to harbour stations.
On my way.
With the last passengers and vehicles loaded, the Herald is ready to leave port.
Okay, take her out.
Take her out.
Tonight, the hustle of the crew pays off. The Herald, a free enterprise, departs just a few minutes behind schedule.
I went off to the restaurant to get something to eat. I was looking around and so many people, families and kids. And I couldn't figure out why so many people on a boat. You know, normally at that time of the year, it'd be only just truck drivers and no one else on it.
A lot of the families used to make it a day out on the ferry, and we had the return leg from Zeebrugge on that night, so it was particularly busy.
I decided to go outside and have a look at the view as we were leaving port, which was quite amazing. I was the only one on the outside of the ship.
Less than 25 minutes into the voyage, with the harbor still in sight, the Herald, a free enterprise, suddenly lurches to the left.
It looked like the boat was going under the water. And I thought, oh, it must be like a mirage. I was imagining it, but it was actually happening.
Below decks, where the vehicles are parked, more proof that something is horribly wrong.
There's water coming down the stairs!
What on earth is going on here?
The Herald rights itself.
She came back out of that and kind of straightened.
But within seconds, the crew realizes the crisis is far from over. Once again, the Herald lists dangerously to one side.
But she didn't come back from this one. She went straight over. Happened so quickly. Couldn't believe it happened so quickly.
Plates and people started falling. Anything that wasn't strapped down or tied down was going through the air, including people. Realise exactly what was happening. I fell against the window at the side of the ship.
The Herald has rolled over in just 90 seconds. 539 people are trapped on board. In the ice-cold seawater, is about to make the terrifying situation much worse. The Herald, a free enterprise, has capsized in the frigid waters just outside of Belgium's Zeebrugge harbor, with 539 people on board. Throughout the ship, passengers and crew are struggling to survive, and the situation is about to get even worse.
There was a massive window, and when it burst, the water absolutely plowed in. Porthole windows, exit doors, entry doors, up through decks, came in everywhere.
The water come up from the car deck, up the lift shaft, and rushed, and then just hit me like a bulldozer. Area where I was, it completely underwater. The lights sort of started appearing as if I'd gone. I can remember thinking almost that was it, game over.
I was still holding the table, and I said to myself, what am I doing here? There was only one way out, and that was up. Now, to go up, if you can imagine a ship that's completely gone outside, to get up was going to be a problem.
It felt like a nightmare. I just didn't know what was happening until I popped up out of the water. Then I suddenly thought, this is it, this is real.
Gillian Badley was up on deck when she was knocked out.
And when I woke on that, I realised the boat had capsized and I needed to get back into the ship to actually find my parents. And that's what I thought I had to do. I had to go back and find my parents. I realised I couldn't physically do it because the water was rising on the inside and it was getting higher and higher. And that's when I knew that I had to jump into the sea, otherwise I might have drowned on the actual ship. And I knew I had to fight for my life. Mum taught me how to swim as a young child. Otherwise, I would not have been able to save my own life that night. It was freezing cold and the sea was really rough. Just didn't know what to do, and I thought I could actually swim back to shore. And then I realised, of course, I wouldn't be able to because it was too rough.
Inside the ship, O'Brien and hundreds of other passengers are looking for a way out as the ice-cold waters continue to rise.
The worst part for me, to hear the people screaming and shouting.
As the crisis worsens on board the Herald, port controllers in Zeebrugge harbor receive an urgent radio call from a nearby ship.
A car ferry has just rolled over at the entrance to the harbor.
The port controller issues a mayday. Malcolm Shakespeare is chief officer on board the Duke of Anglia.
What's this about the ferry?
His crew hears the call as they near the harbor, and they immediately begin looking for the vessel.
There was a mayday. Will all vessels proceed in the area to look for the bloody ferry?
On the Herald, passengers can't wait for help to arrive.
There's only one thing that came into my mind, was about me surviving and me trying to leave. I found a hose reel, a fire hose reel, and I threw it up to get it around the chair. And I missed, of course, and I tried it again. I got around it, so I said, no, could I pull myself up?
In another part of the ship, Martin Barnes is still alive, but he has no way out as the frigid North Sea continues to pour in.
The backs of the seats, they're all fixed to the deck. So the backs of the seats then became a ladder system. So I can remember like pulling myself up the backs of these seats, falling back off again because I was wet, I was cold, I was heavier with the water all soaking on my clothes.
Using the fire hose, Larry O'Brien has managed to pull himself clear of the water. He scales the chairs, but now there's another challenge.
I climbed up and the window was in front of me.
There's no way to open the window. O'Brien is trapped.
I took off my boot. I kept beating with the boot and eventually broke out of it. I put my hand in my pocket and I took out 20 wet cigarettes. So we weren't going to have a smoke. I said, I have to get someone's attention. So I took out my cigarette lighter out of my pocket and I started flashing, flicking it like this, lighting to see could the ship that was 2 or 3 miles away see me doing this to get their attention. That was only a moment of panic. That didn't happen.
With more people still trapped inside the ferry, O'Brien gets to work.
So I got this big rope and I threw it back down. People started coming up.
Go on, put them in line, all right?
On the Duke of Anglia, Malcolm Shakespeare and the crew swing into action.
All right.
But the waters are too shallow for the ship to get close enough to the capsized ferry.
You can't steam around here because of the banks.
Come on, boys, let's move it.
We launched the lifeboat and off we went in the dark. I mean, when I think about it, it was all madness, really.
Gillian Baddeley is struggling to stay above the water in the cold North Sea. She thought getting away from the Herald was the right decision. Now, she's not so sure.
I looked back at the ship and I could see how it was capsized onto one side, and it was really almost surreal. It was such a rough night that night. The sea was battling against me. It was so cold that I lost the feeling in my legs with hypothermia coming in.
Inside the Herald, hundreds of passengers are still trapped. Time is running out as the freezing water starts to take its toll. Suddenly, the darkness is pierced by the flashlights of the rescuers.
We saw all the lights at the top of the starboard side.
The only way that we could get people out was by smashing the windows with fire axes.
That was when we heard all the big, heavy smashing. All you heard was this glass breaking, and watch out below.
There's people inside the ship still screaming and shouting. I mean, you know, it's absolute chaos and confusion.
Right!
We saw the ropes coming down in a loop type thing. They were shouting, put it under your arms.
Come on!
Grip onto the rope, like so, and then we'll lift. And I can remember looking up, and they were just saying, obviously, hold on, we're pulling.
Helicopters hover over the capsized ferry as more rescue boats arrive on the scene.
I saw a lifeboat, but it was just a local fisherman. I waved my arms at him like this, and they pointed over at me and then came over. And pulled me up on the boat. The feeling, knowing that I'd survived and I was going to live, was just so overwhelming, the relief.
By sea and air, rescue efforts continue for hours.
There was bodies floating in front of me. There was so much destruction, death that night.
By early morning, it's clear there are no more survivors.
By the end of the night, we'd rescued 300 and something odd passengers. We managed to recover 58 bodies, and then we couldn't find anybody else.
Gillian Baddeley is lucky to be alive, but she doesn't know what happened to the rest of her family.
A couple more survivors came in, and then it was my brother Mark.
Mark! Mark!
Gillian!
Mark!
We had a lovely reunion. We hugged and cried.
Gillian's other stepbrother, Colin, also survives.
Oh, excuse me. I'm Gillian Badley.
Mark Badley and our brother Colin. We're looking for our parents.
Oh, and Uncle David.
The lady from the Red Cross came over with like a clipboard in her hand and saw our names on the list, and she looked up at us and said, "You do know that your parents are dead, don't you?" And that was how the news got broke to us.
As the number of dead climbs to 193, the questions begin. How had such a massive vessel capsized so quickly? And who is to blame? The accident that killed 193 on the Herald of Free Enterprise is Britain's worst maritime disaster in decades. From the beginning, the nation is riveted.
There are conflicting reports of what happened. One account says it hit the harbour wall, another that it ran onto a sandbank.
The government orders a formal investigation. David Steele is a lawyer and senior member of the team.
It was such an astonishingly awful disaster which caught the attention of the British people.
How could it have happened? We examine the theories that will now be investigated. The Prime Minister has flown to the scene and...
Gentlemen, please take a seat.
To assist with the inquiry, a team of experts is assembled. Naval architect Tom Allen worked on the construction of the ship.
At the time the Herald of Free Enterprise was built, she was one of 3 sisters. They were going to be the biggest and the fastest ships going across from Dover to Calais.
How had this state-of-the-art ship come to such a tragic end? The Herald remains beached just outside the harbor, a painful reminder of the terrifying night it sank.
It was quite remarkable to see this pretty big ship lying on its beam ends with half the hull above the water.
The position of the Herald allows investigators to check for obvious damage to the ship's starboard hull.
Your first thought would be that it was a collision. And it is a very busy route.
If the Herald had collided with another vessel, it might explain the sudden dramatic tilt passengers and crew experienced. A hole under the waterline would also explain the speed with which the boat capsized. But from their vantage point, investigators can't see anything like that. When they get to the front of the boat, however, they see something troubling. The huge 5-meter bow doors are wide open.
You could see all around the ship and you could see that the doors were open. So that was the surprise.
As investigators interview eyewitnesses, they learn that the doors at the front of the ship weren't closed when the Herald sailed out of Zeebrugge.
The ship should not have sailed with those doors open. As a ship is moving forward, she builds up a wave at the forward end of the ship. As you're moving forward, that wave can increase in size. It's purely a pressure wave of the ship going through the water. It just pushes the water up, and then it can push it back into the ship.
But ferries like the Herald are designed to keep water out, even if the doors are open. In harbor, there's normally 2.5 meters between the ship's deck and the waterline. It's called the freeboard, and it's kept ships safe in the past.
There was another example of a vessel that actually sailed with the doors open.
In October 1983, the Herald sister ship, the Pride of Free Enterprise, sailed from Dover to Calais without incident, even though its bow and stern doors were left open.
So she sailed across and nobody knew.
But it could have been disastrous, so the captain of that ship asked for changes to make sure it couldn't happen again. But with no damage to the vessel, the ferry company decided no changes were necessary. Investigators don't understand why the Pride crossed safely, but the Herald didn't.
We did have to scratch our heads at how on earth this vessel sank, even with the bow doors open. She should have been able to make it across the channel.
The Herald is raised, and when investigators probe the ship, they can't find anything else out of the ordinary. Somehow, the open bow doors must have been the cause of the accident. But how?
Everything set, Tony? Cars and lawyers are lined up here. Good.
To better understand the disaster, experts turn to the Herald's sister ship. They need to take it to the brink of disaster to determine why 193 people died. It's 2 months since the Herald of Free Enterprise capsized near Zeebrugge Harbor, killing 193.
Are we close yet? Almost ready, yeah.
To understand how, investigators replicate as closely as possible the last minutes of the doomed ship. They reenact the voyage using the Herald's sister ship, the Pride of Free Enterprise. The two ferries have the exact same design, and investigators load the Pride to its maximum tonnage. Using a series of cameras mounted on the ship, they monitor every stage of the experiment.
Cameras mounted. Okay, let's get started.
Tony Morrill coordinated the test.
On board, we had devices to measure the power of the ship and speed. We had people tracking the ship from the shore. We wanted to take over the ship, if you like, and have a departure at the same tide of conditions and the same time of day as the Herald left Zeebrugge.
Okay, we're ready. Okay.
The only crucial difference, this time the bow doors are closed. The investigators are most interested in the freeboard, the distance from the waterline to the car deck. How had the harbor waters leapt 3 meters onto the Herald? First, they turn their attention to the loading process at Zeebrugge.
How are the ballast tanks?
Number 14, 268 tons. Tank 3 is at 42 tons, sir.
Very good.
While the Herald is designed to be loaded on 2 levels at the same time, Zeebrugge Harbor only has a single loading ramp.
The procedure was to use the same ramp for loading the lower deck and the higher deck. And the only way to actually facilitate this was to ballast the bow down so that the ramp could touch onto the top deck and then loading could proceed.
Before the Herald left harbor, the crew began the 2-hour-long process of emptying the tanks. But it was still carrying tons of ballast at the time of the accident. For the test, investigators make sure the Pride of Free Enterprise has a similar amount on board.
Ballast 14 and 3 at 260 tons. What's the freeboard? That'll bring the bow down 0.5 meter.
Did the extra ballast cause the flooding of the car decks?
It reduced the freeboard, the distance between the water line at the bow and the vehicle deck itself. So at the start, when it left the Zeebrugge, that freeboard was already reduced.
With the freeboard now reduced by more than 0.5 meter, investigators keep a close watch as the ship sails through the harbor.
The attention was looking at the bow wave using a whole host of cameras, including one looking vertically down at the bow wave.
But even with the ballast tanks filled and the ferry loaded, the cameras show that the water still isn't reaching the bow doors. Investigators believe the harbor itself may have played a role in the disaster. At just 16 meters deep, Zeebrugge Harbor is relatively shallow. The pride's hull sinks almost 6 meters into it. As it leaves Zeebrugge, the narrow gap between the hull and the harbor floor pulls the ship even deeper.
Because of the restricted amount of water beneath the keel and the seabed, the water speeds up, and that has a consequence of allowing the ship to sink.
It's called the squat effect, and it drops the bow another half meter into the water. But even as the ship sails through the shallow harbor, investigators still can't get the water onto the bow deck.
It's still a reasonable, even though small freeboard.
Captain, can we take it to full speed, please?
Investigators get the crew to match the speed of the Herald as it left the harbor. When they do, they finally find the last piece of the puzzle.
Hey, look at this. Look at this.
The water that was lurking just below now reaches the bow doors.
The cameras showed very clearly that at a critical speed, water rose high enough to engulf that deck if the bow doors were open.
For the Herald, this was the beginning of the end. With tons of ballast in the bow tanks, a shallow harbor, and an increased speed, the freeboard shrank to a critical level.
The rate of flow of water coming in was 40 tons a second in the first 15 seconds.
Once the water came in, it had free access onto the car deck. So it would have made its way around all of the freight that was on board.
Then the vessel would capsize within 1 minute. Within 1 minute. I mean, so this was drastic stuff.
One reason the Herald went over so quickly was the design of the ship itself. Like most ro-ro ferries, its car decks weren't built with dividing bulkheads. If there's any flooding, it can spread rapidly. The extreme movement of water across a deck is called the free surface effect, and it can be deadly.
If you take a normal tray and you put water in it, now while you're holding it, the water is still. You move slightly, all the water moves to one end. Now, if you can imagine on a ship which is 50 meters wide, and you have a meter of water, then as you heel to one side, it's the weight of the waters moving. That is what's called free surface. It's actually a movement of weight from one side of the ship to the other as the ship heels.
That movement of weight was what caused the ship to tilt and right itself the first time.
But if the weight gets too great, the inherent stability in the ship will not hold it and she will heel over. You're talking about a couple of thousand tons of water, which is actually moving from one side of the ship to the other, and that has a big impact.
It takes just seconds for the Herald to capsize. The open bow doors led to the flooding of the Herald and to the death of 193 people. But who was responsible for closing the ship's bow doors? And why hadn't they? The capsize of the Herald of Free Enterprise took the lives of 193 people. Investigators understand the mechanics of the disaster, but the reason the ferry's bow doors were open is another startling discovery.
The focus of attention was, of course, on why they were open, as they obviously shouldn't have been.
The ship's captain comes under intense scrutiny. Why had he left harbor without securing those doors?
Now, you got to remember the bow doors on the Herald are different from most of the other ferries at the time. Most of the other ferries, the bow door came up and over, so that you couldn't actually see out of the bridge because you had the door sitting up above your head. With the Herald of Free Enterprise, there were cam doors so they came round the side, so it wasn't immediately obvious that the doors were open.
Investigators discover that there was no warning light to tell the captain the doors hadn't been closed. Isolated on the bridge, he had no way of knowing he was sailing into disaster. An inquiry is assembled to get answers. The central witness is the ship's captain, David Lurie. But he was badly injured in the disaster, and his memory is unclear.
How did you travel with the bow doors open?
I really don't remember. I'd assumed it was impossible.
Take her out. Take her out.
What Lurie can say is that no one told him there was a problem.
One of the things which we found during the investigation was that they operate a negative reporting system. Now, with a negative reporting system, the captain assumes that everything's okay unless somebody tells him that it's wrong. One of the things we had to instigate after was to have a positive reporting system so that the chief officer or the officer on the deck has to confirm to the bridge, right, the doors are closed and you can now sail.
The inquiry learns that the captain didn't ensure the bow doors were closed before departure. What about his chief officer?
Leslie Sable, Chief Officer, Herald of Free Enterprise.
It's Sable's job to oversee the loading and unloading of the ship.
Keep it moving, keep it moving.
When Sable tells his story, investigators make an unsettling discovery.
I failed to stay at the controls that operated the bow doors.
Crew to harbor stations. Crew to harbor stations.
On my way.
Just minutes before the Herald's scheduled departure time, Sable leaves the loading deck, even though the bow doors are still open. The inquiry hears that leaving early was the only way for Sable to satisfy another requirement of his standing orders.
Okay, take her out.
Take her out, please.
Taking her out.
Being on the bridge for departure.
The requirement that the chief officer be on the car deck to see the doors closed was obviously wholly inconsistent with his need to be on the bridge to assist in departure.
You've got a situation here. The officer is pulled between ensuring safety down on the car deck and actually safety up on the bridge.
The inquiry learns that if the chief officer waited to confirm the bow doors were closed, departure would be delayed by several minutes. In fact, in a memo issued 7 months before the accident, the company that operated the ferry urged that it leave 15 minutes early, and that pressure be put on the first officer to ensure prompt departure.
There's a lot of competition, so the pressure to get on with it is fully understandable. But what hadn't been thought through was that the more you put pressure on A to do something, when he's expected to be somewhere else at the same time, then you're asking for trouble.
This memo was so shocking in that any manager would put it in writing that speed was all important and safety was not.
The captain didn't notice anything irregular, and the chief officer was too busy to check. The inquiry hears from Assistant Bosun Mark Stanley.
The bosun has many tasks, no doubt, but his primary task on departure from a port was to close the doors.
Thank you for appearing here today. Did you close the bow doors?
No.
Mark Stanley admits that on March 6, 1987, he failed to do his job.
The person responsible for closing the doors conceded that he hadn't done so.
Time for tea?
Sure.
Mark Stanley admits he left his post for his break. His shift started hours earlier on the other side of the English Channel.
Humans will make mistakes. However well disciplined, however well trained, they get tired. And tired humans can make mistakes.
When Stanley returns to his cabin for tea, he falls asleep.
Crew to harbor stations. Crew to harbor stations.
It's a nap he won't wake up from until the ship capsizes. Stanley's testimony shocks Britain. The inquiry finds the bow doors were left open because a single crew member was asleep, and the Herald had no adequate backups to catch his mistake.
There was no redundancy here. If one man failed, there was nobody there to step in.
A tired crew and a rush to save a few minutes cost the lives of nearly 200 people. It's a sobering wake-up call for ferry operators. Changes were required to prevent a disaster like this from ever happening again. After months of investigation, the report on the Herald of Free Enterprise disaster is finally released. Members of the crew and ferry management are blamed.
Mr. Justice Sheen said of the Townsend Company that from top to bottom, it was riddled with the disease of slovenliness. There'd been a lamentable lack of direction and a vacuum at the center.
Changes are made to the reporting system and the standing orders. But the report also calls for roll-on, roll-off ferries to be redesigned.
We were looking at improving the survivability so that there was less an opportunity for this to happen again.
There's one simple fix that would have prevented the tragedy.
They could have put an indicator on board which showed that the doors were closed.
This tribunal recommended that there be lights on the bridge for just that purpose.
The lack of indicator lights isn't the only design flaw that contributed to the capsizing of the Herald. In order to attract customers in a competitive industry, ro-ro ferries are built to allow cars to drive on and off the ships as quickly as possible. That convenience comes with a steep price.
What you've got to do is to look at the type of vessel itself, and they are extremely vulnerable. They're designed for optimum efficiency, but you're actually building in potential hazards, particularly the open car decks, which extend from forward to aft of the ship and from side to side.
The report suggests that bulkheads be built within car decks to reduce the free surface effect.
There was considerable pressure from some quarters of the maritime community to bring to an end the use of open-decked ferries.
But it's a design change that meets stiff resistance from the industry.
The whole concept of ro-ro ferries is speed of turnaround. You can go in from one end and you just drive straight off from the other end. So an open deck is almost essential.
As the industry struggles to balance the competing demands of speed and safety, the shadow of the tragedy still lingers for many of the survivors of the disaster.
I spent about 4 months driving just to prove to myself that I could do it. My family weren't very impressed with me, but we got over that issue. And I said, I had to do this. I had to do it.
There was no way back for me going back to sea. I tried to in the following year. The anxiety got hold of me and thought, no more, I can't do this anymore. So, yeah, called it a day. It'll be with me till the day I go. Once you've seen trauma, you don't forget it.
We were told we were going to have to identify the bodies, and we were taken to a gymnasium, and then I saw my mum lying there, and they said I couldn't touch her, but I did anyway. I put my hand on her shoulder to say goodbye and that I love you.
I suppose the worst part of it for me was happening to see the children floating in the water, you know, and that put me thinking of my little girl at home, you know, and how lucky I was that she was at home.
Larry O'Brien helped save as many as 40 people that night. If not for him and the dozens of passengers and crew members that suddenly became rescuers, the disaster could have been far more deadly.
There's great criticism about the crew of the Herald of Free Enterprise. No. The crew of the Herald of Free Enterprise went beyond the call of duty. Some of the crew lost their lives rescuing people, and that should never be forgotten.
what I did, anyone else would do the same thing. You know, it's just the way it takes you. If I was back tomorrow morning, or this happened the next day, you don't know how you're going to react. You just don't know how you're going to react.
It took me, I'd say, 2 years to be able to live again, to be able to live a normal day without not hurting and thinking about it all the time and how life could have been so different. See, I'd lost my whole family in the one day. I'd left as a child and then came back as an adult. And I knew my life was going to change forever. It would never be quite the same.
A sudden alarm on the English Channel
Mayday, mayday! This is the MSC Napoli.
leaves 26 men in desperate need of a daring rescue.
Let's go!
If you lose the engine room on a ship, you've lost the ship.
Abandoned ship!
In my head, I started freaking out. And I started to think, I'm not sure anybody can save us.
The waves and the upwelling was massive, and the wind was horrific. I might never make that life raft.
Why did a state-of-the-art ship split apart?
It's a very rare occurrence. Never really seen an incident like it.
And can an answer be found?
There's not much margin for error here.
Before disaster strikes again. It's a stormy winter day on the English Channel.
Good afternoon.
The container ship MSC Napoli is sailing west, loaded with more than 2,300 shipping containers, filled with everything from camcorders to dinnerware to auto parts.
Status report, please.
Valentin Vilev is in command.
Maintaining course and speed, Captain. And I've got the latest Met report.
A veteran mariner, he served as master on the massive cargo ship for 5 years.
They're very large ships. Walk one end to the other on the Napoli would take probably 10 minutes.
Today, the captain's facing a challenge. The ship is in gale force winds and heavy seas.
Welcome to January in the North Atlantic, eh, cadets?
Happy to be here in any weather, sir.
Forbes Duthie is on board as a deck cadet, trying to learn the complex operation of these ships.
Here, let me show you.
You just tend to fit into the routine of the people who are already on board, the main ship's crew. They're the ones to lead you and train you. So you really pay attention to what they're doing.
The Napoli is on its way from Antwerp, Belgium, to the port of Sines in Portugal.
Come to port, please. To 220 degrees.
Coming to port, 220 degrees.
But Captain Vilev is running behind. It could be hard to make up the time. At 275 meters, the ship is the length of 2.5 football fields. But despite its size, plowing through 9-meter waves at high speed could damage the ship and its cargo containers. Ken Potter is a marine safety consultant with decades of experience at sea. He knows what the captain was facing.
When the wind comes around to the side of a container ship, they tend to roll. And a lot of the weight of those containers is up high, so they tend to roll more and deeper.
The captain needs to slow down to keep the ship and its cargo safe.
Chief.
Engine room.
This is the captain.
Reduce engine speed now.
To 71 RPM.
Got it, Captain.
As Duthie's shift ends, the pitch and roll of the ship is increasing. He'll have to rest amid the rough motion that mariners learn to endure at sea.
You could tell there was a bit of weather outside, but she was rolling relatively easily, so we had a great sleep.
By the next morning, the ship's motion is getting more violent.
When you're going into a head sea, you're pounding or slamming. It's like a hammer coming down, slamming into the sea.
Around 10 o'clock in the morning, I remember hearing a large bang.
Damn it! We've got flooding in the engine room. Get down there and take a look at what's going on.
A pipe from one of the seawater pumps has torn open. It's a dangerous problem. If the flooding continues, the engine could shut down, leaving the Napoli helpless.
If that happens when you're in heavy weather conditions, you don't have control of your ship anymore. And the ship could broach, which means turn sideways and start to capsize.
In his cabin, all Duthie knows is that the ship is still enduring the storm.
It was at that time of morning that I really had to start getting myself ready for going up to the bridge and attending my watch. And when I was in the shower, the dynamic motion of the vessel, it just seemed like out of control. I was being thrown around. Alarm bells started to go off in my head. A huge ship like this shouldn't be moving in this way.
In the engine room, the third engineer works desperately to close the cutoff valve. But it doesn't fix the problem. The engine room is filling with water.
You know, his immediate reaction is going to be, how could this possibly happen?
Bridge.
Captain.
We're in serious trouble down here. The engine room is
flooding.
We have to shut down the engines.
Understood.
If you lose the engine room on a ship, you've lost the ship.
It's every captain's worst nightmare. Graydon Halge is a former container ship captain. He knows the gravity of this situation.
If you don't have power, then you're at the mercy of the sea. The last thing you want in bad weather.
In the space of a few minutes, the ship's motion almost became like it was out of control. So I thought, okay, I'm going to get myself into my work clothing and go up to the bridge.
The hallway is littered with bags from the crew's immersion suits. Suits they wear if they have to abandon ship. And they're empty.
I was shocked by what appeared in front of me. The whole alleyway was just strewn with these immersion suit bags, which is not a normal sight, I think, on any ship in the world.
Go to the provisions locker, grab as much bottled water as you can.
I knew as soon as I looked at those guys, this is not a normal drill. You don't put on your immersion suit for a normal drill.
The cadets. Oh my God. Go get the other cadet. Go! Go!
The chief officer at the time looked at me with these huge eyes and he was like, the cadets. Oh my God. Go and get your friend. Go and get your friend.
Duthie hurries to help make sure everyone is accounted for.
Nick!
I reached Nick's cabin and I started banging on the door.
Nick! You've got to wake up! Get your suits on, we're gonna go to the bridge. What's the matter? Hell if I know, let's go now!
The Napoli is crippled and taking on water 80 kilometers from the nearest land. Out of options, the captain puts out a final distress call.
Mayday, mayday! This is the MSC Napoli. We are making our way to the lifeboats.
I was like, this can't be real. This is crazy. This ship is huge. How could this happen?
The crew of the MSC Napoli is trapped in a deadly emergency. Outside the bridge, the chief engineer shows Deck Cadet Forbes Duthie the cause: a massive vertical crack in the ship's hull.
You could see there was a huge hole there, and in my head, I started freaking out. All sorts of emotions started going through my mind.
When a ship breaks in two, one or both sections capsize. So before the ship actually separated into two pieces, the captain had to get his crew off.
Abandon ship!
As soon as the captain said abandon ship, it was like a train. Everyone just started going towards the lifeboat station.
Abandoning a ship is never easy, and in the conditions they were in, it was even more challenging.
I just couldn't believe it. This was going to happen.
All 26 Napoli crew members are crammed into a capsule-like lifeboat. It will keep them alive in the violent seas, but it's going to be a rough ride. Adrift on the threshold of the North Atlantic, the nearest help is nearly 100 kilometers away at the Royal Navy Air Station Culdrose in southern England. Royal Navy rescue diver Jay O'Donnell was there that day.
I was the only diver on the squadron for that day, and we're a bit concerned because there's something bubbling up on the radio. And then the alarm went. Get airborne. There's 26 people in the water.
O'Donnell knows the stormy weather is going to make this a tough rescue.
And he could not believe the weather. He could look out the window and it was getting worse and worse. I've never seen the sea so angry in my life.
This is Captain Valev of the MSC Napoli. We've abandoned ship. We are in a lifeboat in the channel. Do you copy?
You felt like you were inside a washing machine. I mean, you were being thrown about. Because it's so well sealed inside as well, the temperature, it rises quite quickly. You felt like you were in a sauna, if not worse.
To be in a lifeboat with that many other people in confined conditions, it's probably the most horrendous experience you're going to have. It's almost guaranteed that every person on the lifeboat will be seasick.
This is Captain Valev of the MSC Napoli. Do you copy?
There's a portable VHF radio, and we tried using that to contact, but for some reason that just didn't work. Then I started to think, I'm not sure anybody can save us. But then you could hear something that seemed really far away, but it sounded like it was a helicopter.
Royal Navy Search and Rescue have spotted the lifeboat, but Jay O'Donnell knows finding it is only the first step.
The waves and the upwelling was massive, and the wind was horrific. It was 70 knots steady. And I just thought I might never make that life raft. It was just getting thrown around.
Wearing a harness secured to a lifeline, O'Donnell is lowered toward the lifeboat. It's rising and falling in surging 12-meter waves.
I actually got in the water at one point, swimming towards it, thinking he's just going to pay the cable out so I can get to it. And the next minute, I'm swimming in absolute midair.
Inside the lifeboat, the crew can only wait and hope.
We weren't in there just for 5 minutes. That was approximately 3 hours we were in that lifeboat for, and it seemed like weeks.
But Jay O'Donnell is nearly there. Balancing carefully on the outside, he opens the door and greets what he thinks will be a French-speaking crew.
Bonjour! Ça va?
I think initially maybe he was told it was a French vessel.
It was horrible in there. They were seasick, and they were desperate to get out of that situation. And you know, you could see the fear in their eyes. They, you know, I don't think they thought they were being rescued.
Anybody hurt?
Quite quickly he understood we were actually English speaking, all of us, and he reassured us. He says, we're going to get you all off safely.
O'Donnell's next task is to get everyone up to safety as fast as he can. The chopper has limited fuel,
Okay, you!
so time is of the essence.
I'm gonna hook you up to the harness!
I tried to give them some sort of a safety brief, and I said, this is what you need to do. Arms down by the side, on your knees, put the rescue strap on them, and then give them a big nod to say, you're ready to go.
Okay, up!
There was literally enough space for me to kneel and a tiny other square to get one person off at a time.
Ready?
One by one, he helps the survivors out of the storm-tossed lifeboat and onto the cable that will winch them to safety. Then he returns for the next survivor.
Okay, come on, next one, let's go!
It was kind of key to make it quick and safe.
Up to the strap, come on!
I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. But yet, there was so much relief. I'm safe now.
Okay, come on!
I'm going to be going into that helicopter and I'm okay. And it was just a phenomenal experience.
Okay, next one, let's go!
After 90 tense minutes, Jay O'Donnell manages to hoist the final survivor to safety.
Oh, God. That feeling, it's like, you know, really exhilarated feeling. We did it.
The rescue mission to get us out of that catastrophic situation, that's an amazing job. I can't believe, like, someone would risk their life for others like that.
The entire crew is safely ashore. But the Napoli is stranded near the western end of the English Channel, taking on water through the crack in its hull. Salvage experts warn authorities the Napoli could be a ticking environmental time bomb.
She was carrying 4,000 cubic meters of heavy fuel oil. That's a substance like tar. Don't think of it as oil. It really is horrible.
At the time, Robin Middleton was the UK SOS rep, the Secretary of State's representative for maritime salvage and intervention. His task, safeguard life and the environment for the British government.
When the Napoli incident occurred, I was due to retire. So you can imagine it took me a little by surprise.
Middleton knows what's at risk. Just 5 years before, an oil tanker sank and spilled its contents, with catastrophic results.
We'd had the Prestige, which had spilled oil all over the beaches of Spain. Napoli would have put oil all over the beaches of the United Kingdom.
To avoid a similar disaster, the team wants to tow the crippled Napoli to a sheltered area where they can start to unload the hazardous contents. But there's a danger. The cracked ship might not be strong enough to survive being towed through the rough channel waters.
All right, let's get the structure guys in and have a look.
An international team of salvage experts is asked to weigh in.
With not much more to go on than just a photograph of what looked like the crack down the side of the hull.
Naval architect Chris Earle was a consultant on the case.
We had to sort of make a bit of a judgment call to work out whether it was safe to try and tow it or not.
If the ship sinks in deep water, it could make cleanup even harder.
Thanks for your help.
So risking the tow seems like the best option. The question now is, where?
We had to take it somewhere where it could be sheltered, somewhere close to shore or a port or a harbour.
He needs to watch out for powerful currents, and making for the British coast looks safer than heading to France. He zeroes in on several possible destinations along the UK side of the channel.
Dragging a broad arm to the sea and the wind and the weather would almost certainly cause it to break up.
It's a difficult decision he's got to make, and he hasn't got the luxury of time to try and make that call.
It's got to be Portland. Show me the route to Portland.
Middleton has fixed on Portland, a former naval station on Britain's south coast that's sheltered from the open sea. As the tow gets underway, a different branch of the government is already trying to work out what caused the disaster. Tony Brown was a principal inspector with Britain's Marine Accident Investigation Branch.
At the time, it was still an ongoing abandonment, and what we didn't know was what sort of failure it was. So those initial stages was all very much a case of trying to get as much evidence together as we can.
Something tore the Napoli apart. The question is, what was it?
Thank you for coming. Please take a seat.
Happy to help.
With the Napoli still being towed to shore, investigators turn to their best available source of information.
What do you want to know?
The crew who survived the disaster.
I want you to tell us what happened.
Well, we had an engine room flooding alarm.
Memory fades, so when it comes to eyewitnesses, it is better to get there sooner rather than later.
Damn it! We've got flooding in the engine room. Get down there and take a look at what's going on.
The pipe separated like this.
All right.
The third engineer had a front row seat to the catastrophe, and he adds a curious detail about the flooding.
And there was this wall of oily water.
The water was thick with oil.
This wall of water that the engineer described, that was really important for us at that stage. That gave us a really good picture of what had happened.
Look at this. We have cracking here.
And oily water means we have a failure under the engine room.
It's a critical lead. It tells them the hull failed at what should be the strongest part of the ship's skeleton. The ship's keel runs along the entire center line of the bottom and helps support the structure of the vessel. A failure here is almost unheard of.
It's a very rare occurrence. Container ships very, very rarely have any sort of structural failure of that magnitude.
A failure like this means whatever went wrong must have involved unusually powerful forces. Investigators wonder if the storm was extreme enough to explain it. The Napoli was sailing in Category 11 winds, a violent storm just one step short of a hurricane.
The wave height was up to 9 meters. So it was a pretty rough seas. They're not ones that would have been comfortable by any means.
But it's not the weather on its own that catches the investigators' attention.
I nearly fell over in the shower.
Wow.
It was like I was inside of a washing machine.
The account of one of the officers having difficulty standing up in the shower and the failure being preceded by several quite strong strikes of waves kind of gave us cause for concern. When a ship's heading into large waves, it can experience a phenomenon called slamming.
Slamming happens when the bow drops into oncoming waves, and the powerful impacts reverberate through the hull.
That sends a judder all the way through the ship, so you can really feel it.
The juddering vibrations can cause major stress to the hull. But the captain was an experienced seaman.
Chief.
Engine room. This is the captain. Reduce engine speed now to 71 RPM.
Got it, Captain.
He adjusted his speed and never felt any sign the ship was in danger.
If you take the analogy of speed bumps in the road, you drive over speed bumps at 40 miles an hour, you're going to damage your car. So the master had slowed down.
The slamming is one more sign the ship was enduring a rough voyage. But there's no indication it was enough to tear the ship apart.
Although the vessel was pounding, but its bow was pounding into the waves, and although there would have been vibration felt in this situation, may have seemed relatively safe. That was just a bit of a dead end for us.
It's starting to look like the only way to find out what tore the Napoli apart is to get a look at the hull.
I'd really love to get a look at that ship.
But the Napoli's 48-hour, 300-kilometer journey to Portland has hit a roadblock with 60 kilometers left to the finish line.
At 26 minutes past 7, a call from the salvage master to say the cracks are opening, she's taken on more water, she's sinking.
The Napoli is sinking fast, and with an environmental catastrophe looming, the mystery of why it broke up may have to wait.
Napoli's in trouble.
Robin Middleton is back in the hot seat. He's just received word the Napoli is too damaged to reach its emergency beaching site at Portland. If it sinks, it could release a massive oil spill far offshore where it's difficult to contain. He's got to get the ship to shore.
It's got to be Branscombe.
And that means finding somewhere to run it aground.
Once an accident happens, the clock can never be wound back. That just doesn't happen. So I'd planned out for what the worst case could be.
Middleton is forced to make a difficult choice. Branscombe Beach in Lime Bay. It's close by, but it's also a United Nations Environmental Heritage Site. Hardly the ideal location to ground a ship filled with oil. On January 20th, 2007, 3 days after the Napoli's crew abandoned ship, it successfully beached less than a mile from shore.
It was a tough decision because I had effectively put this thing ashore in one of the most environmentally protected and vulnerable areas of the United Kingdom.
Lime Bay resident and Coast Guard volunteer Roger Hoare is sent to get eyes on the unfolding situation.
Never before in my time had I ever seen anything so big, so close to the coast in this position. Quite bizarre, surreal.
Any spilled oil will float to the surface, so crews quickly surround the wreck with more than half a mile of containment booms to keep it from reaching shore or escaping into the channel.
If it's not protected properly, when an incident like the Napoli comes along, it can tip it over the edge from being a disaster to a real ecological catastrophe.
Now, leaking oil could actually be removed from the sea, literally pumped into containers and recovered in that way. And they were very effective at it too in the end.
Robin Middleton's plan to prevent a catastrophic oil spill has succeeded. But just as one crisis is brought under control, another one is looming. The beached vessel begins listing in the rough seas, throwing more than 100 containers overboard. Some sink, but others drift off in one of the busiest shipping lanes in the world.
They were either just above the surface of the sea or just below.
At the time, Mark Rodaway was in charge of the nearby Coast Guard station.
Now these 40-foot steel containers full of water and goods were a real hazard to shipping. And one of our primary objectives was to start predicting how they would float or where they would drift to, and then start putting warnings out to other shipping going up and down the English Channel.
Nearly 60 containers wash ashore on Branscombe, attracting hundreds of scavengers. The story quickly becomes a media sensation.
It took us by complete surprise that so many people could get here so quickly.
People from far and wide started to head to those beaches, and it really was a whiskey galore, come on down and look what's on the beach.
They break into the containers to grab whatever they can and carry it up the cliffs.
There was people walking off the beach with BMW steering wheels. There was a lot of empty wine barrels that were on board. And I believe if you rolled a barrel into a field, you could get £10 a barrel, I believe.
There was consignment of nappies that had broken open. Now, my understanding of nappies are that they absorb water, and these ones had been in the English Channel. So quite what the attraction was, I'm not sure.
There was motorbikes as well. I think there were 6 with keys, ignition keys in them, so they soon disappeared.
Under UK salvage law, scavengers have to return found items to the rightful owners if a claim is made. But enforcing it is a tall order.
We were deployed on the beaches to hand out receiver of wreck forms that people had to sign, fill in and post back to the powers that be, but I remember handing one to a certain gentleman who tore it off in front of me. It's fine, sir, carry on.
Robin Middleton's strategy has limited the environmental damage, but resulted in some very public chaos.
Everybody, I think, in the operation felt that I would be relieved or removed for doing this.
Yeah, I mean, this was a really big news story. It's not very often you have a large vessel in coastal waters around the UK. It was riveting viewing for everybody.
Thanks to the looting, there is now a public spotlight on the investigation into the Napoli disaster.
It's a serious accident and people want to find out what's being done about it. So we had to get something moving fairly quickly. We needed results.
With the Napoli beached on the south coast of England, French and Dutch salvage operators are finally able to secure the ship, and investigators are allowed to carefully make their way through the wreck.
We were itching to get on board so we can actually get the evidence we need from the vessel.
Watch your step, watch your step.
But we have to liaise with the salvors to negotiate when it's safe for accident investigators to actually go on board a vessel that is at risk.
Some of the oil had leaked from some of the tanks or some of the machinery, so there was a coating of oil all over. She was lying at a funny angle, so everything was perilously slippy. It was a very, very strange situation to be going into.
They're on the hunt for anything that might point them to the cause of the disaster.
Evidence collection is a priority.
They note the condition of the vessel and gather what they can.
Ah, there it is.
Including the loading computer.
We needed to investigate the cargo that was being carried at the time, the weight of the cargo, the distribution of the cargo.
This one's wrong.
The loading computer helps them compare the weight that was declared in the paperwork with the actual weight on board.
This one.
Distributed improperly, overweight containers can put a potentially devastating strain on the hull.
And you know something?
What they find is troubling. Of nearly 700 containers stored on deck, at least 20% were overweight by 3 tons or more, and more than 50 were in the wrong place.
If you don't know the weight of a container, it's very difficult to actually load a ship safely. There's not much margin for error here.
The investigators calculate the extra weight pushed the ship to nearly 99% of its maximum seagoing capacity.
Pretty close to that limit.
The hull didn't have much safety margin left, but something else must have tipped it over the edge.
What else was missing? What was that little something which just tipped her from being acceptable and happily sailing to just going past that point of failure?
Investigators scour Napoli's operational history and discover a possible explanation. This isn't its first major accident.
Yeah. She ran aground 6 years ago at full speed.
Full speed.
In April 2001, the MSC Napoli, then known as the Normandy, ran aground in the Straits of Malacca.
We were quite concerned as could there have been something in that accident that's affected the structural integrity of the ship.
But a closer look shows the theory doesn't hold up.
The damage previously from the grounding had been very much at the bow end of the vessel. There's no way it could have had any knock-on effects to the stern.
The investigation is at a standstill. A close-up look at the crack in the Napoli's hull might help. But an underwater survey is the closest they can get.
Diver, we have your signal. Please proceed.
If they can capture photographs of the damaged metal, it might tell them what went wrong.
We're all getting very impatient by this time. We're all desperate to try and find a little bit more information. So the hope was that by sending an ROV and divers down, we might be able to get a better view of the damage.
The challenges to an investigator really lie in being methodical, of being patient and looking at every bit of information and just not giving up.
Diver, move to your left, please.
But it's just one more disappointment.
Can't see a damn thing.
We spent all day desperately trying different ways to get some footage of the hull. But the silt and the sand and the debris around, visibility was absolutely dreadful.
This is pointless.
Indeed.
Just off the coast, the Napoli can't be repaired, and steps are taken to prepare the ship for its removal. Crews pump the water from its hull, and then blow it in half with a series of powerful explosions.
The thing to do was to actually separate the bow from the stern of the vessel.
With the ship now in pieces, it's easier to dispose of. The stern is scrapped at the beach, while the bow is towed to a shipyard in Belfast, where it too is dismantled.
She was recycled at a recycling facility at Harland and Wolff, right next to where the Titanic was built.
The ship is gone, but the mystery of what wrecked it remains. At a loss, the investigators are forced to consider a troubling possibility.
It's got to be something with the design.
If the ship had a design flaw, it might have remained hidden until the conditions were right to trigger it. They need to study every detail of how the hull was built.
We did obtain a copy of the design drawings, and we looked to see if the Napoli had any potential weaknesses.
Look, our crack is here. Right under the engine room.
Right.
Right where the framing changes.
The Napoli's hull was strengthened by a series of long beams. But under the engine room, they changed direction to better support the weight of the machinery. The exact point where the emergency began.
Damn it! We've got flooding in the engine room. Get down there and take a look at what's going on.
When we started really looking into the design, there was certainly an inherent weakness in the structure in the engine room.
Just made that one area potentially weaker than the rest of the ship.
The investigators think they're onto something. But the Napoli was a modern ship built under strict specifications.
Wave height, 9 meters.
How did a design flaw slip through the cracks?
Winds, 60 knots.
And how many other ships are at risk? investigators looking into the loss of the Napoli are now focused on a potential weakness in the ship's design.
It's not an uncommon design, but the design of the Napoli, the engine room, was fairly far forward.
The design put the engine room and the change in framing closer to the middle of the ship, an area that's highly stressed at sea.
It became very apparent that the engine room structure would have been a very highly stressed part of the hull.
Did the Napoli have an Achilles heel that caused it to break open? It's an intriguing theory.
We're starting to get a bit of a picture as to what could have caused this structural failure. But we still had to go deeper.
To uncover the truth, they'll have to bring all of their evidence together and recreate the exact conditions the moment the ship broke open. They need to know if the design was strong enough to withstand the many stresses on the ship that day.
Chief, we're in big trouble. We got water in the engine room. Looks like the hull's opened up.
To test their theory, the investigators team up with experts from the DNV,
Waves, 9 meters.
the international organization that helps set standards for designing and building ships.
Winds, 60 knots.
They input all the incremental stresses the investigators discovered into a computer simulation program, from the storm to the overweight cargo to the force of the waves.
Run the simulation.
They need to know how the hull design will react. Cargo vessels are supposed to have a safety buffer between their design and the forces they're expected to encounter, including being overweight or in a storm. The results are conclusive. By a tiny margin, the combination of stressors the Napoli faced that day was just enough to rupture the hull.
At that point, the forces that are at bear are greater than the strength of the vessel. There may be a margin of safety from the design criteria, but anything that is beyond that can put it outside the limits. You've got the overweight containers, you've got the sea state. So you had all these things that combined together.
One stress in particular may have been the straw that broke the camel's back. The vibrations that shook the length of the hull as it slammed up and down in the waves.
As we found with the Napoli, it's that put that on top of all the other stresses which were going on at the time could have been enough to just tip it over the edge.
The findings from the Marine Accident Investigation Branch spark a review of 1,500 container ships. 12 are found to be at risk of the same kind of failure as the Napoli and are slated for immediate repair.
I think this investigation was very significant in terms of saving lives in that it immediately put a spotlight on other similar vessels that existed and, of course, changed the design of future vessels.
Regulations are put in place to ensure all new ships will have sufficient hull strength.
Because of what we identified, the larger ships now are going through a far more stringent strength analysis at the design stage before they're being built.
A long-standing problem in the shipping industry is also addressed when loading computers are upgraded to help prevent ships from being overloaded.
Clearly the industry does its best to learn itself and to think things through, but it's not until an incident happens that you really start to see where the weak points are.
The new regulations will not only save ships,
Abandon ship!
but lives as well. For the investigators on the MAIB team, it's a rewarding conclusion to a long and challenging investigation.
Experience has shown that no, you've got to keep patient, you've got to keep with it, chase down the other avenues, because there's always something turns up.
It's got to be Branscombe.
Robin Middleton faced a barrage of criticism for running the Napoli aground at Branscombe Beach. But he thinks his critics are missing the most important outcome from the emergency, one that vindicates him beyond a shadow of a doubt.
I believe that the decisions were proved correct. They did not look correct at the time to a lot of people. But the fact is that the Napoli did not turn out to be a major environmental disaster.
In my view, he was absolutely the right person in the right place at the right time. And Robin's gift was to be able to take a really desperate group of people and have them working towards a common goal.
Forbes Duthie has continued his career at sea, but the memory of the Napoli disaster is never far away.
Initially, when you stand on the dock and look up at it, you think, you can't lose a ship like that. They're just so strong. They're built to withstand anything. But then, it's not always the case, and you've got to always be ready for the unexpected. I'm never going to forget it. It's going to make me stronger.